All right, thanks everybody for filling in.
So who's going to be the timer, Eric?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and call this meeting to order. Vicki, have you started recording?
Yes.
Hey, welcome everybody to the August 10th Cascade Speakeasy and Electric Toasters meeting. We've got, looks like a full schedule now. Again, thanks everybody for filling in. Rob, do you have a flag for us to salute tonight?
I do, Mr. President. If everyone would kindly mute themselves and focus on my screen and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Tonight, our Toastmaster is Mary. Mary, would you please take over the show?
You bet, Ian. Thanks. Hello, everybody. Here it is, August 10th, almost the middle of August. And how much longer is this COVID-19 thing going to last? And what will the world look like when it's over? I've read some headlines that say it's never going to be over. It's going to be with us forever. But they say maybe on those. So I don't give them the satisfaction of a click on that headline, because I know people get paid for clicks. They're not getting anything from me. I want research, as you know. So I'll be interested to hear what people think about our post-COVID future. The little bit of trivia I've learned today is that Paul McCartney wrote "When I'm 64" when he was only 16 years old. So write that down. There'll be a test at the end of the meeting, a trivia test. Let's continue on with a call for joke of the day. Does anybody have a joke of the day for us? Pat, do you have a joke? Okay, unmute yourself and let us have it.
All right. Here's my question. Does anybody know why they ask stage actors or tell stage actors to break a leg when they're going to perform?
No, Pat, why?
Because every stage play has a cast.
I love puns. I think it's a sign of intelligence, so thank you. Appreciate that. No Toastmaster meeting can be even meaningful without evaluations. And my general evaluator tonight is our friend Dean Carath from the bustling town of Winthrop. Dean, tell us what the general evaluator does and introduce your team, please. And unmute yourself.
I guess I didn't know I was the general evaluator, but I can recover here quickly. If I can bring up the, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So
okay.
Looking for the agenda.
I've got it.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the general evaluator evaluates the overall performance of the meeting. And I have a cast of helpers that include the evaluators of the speeches, the timer, and the grammarian and the counter. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten. Am I just supposed to introduce each evaluator, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd like to invite Steve Schwind to talk about evaluation number 1, in which he will evaluate speaker 1, Joyce Matheson. So Steve, tell us about the speech objectives and what you're evaluating.
Thank you. Tonight I will be evaluating Joyce's speech, "A Little Yarn Goes a Long Way Toward Your Mental Health." Her purpose in this project is to learn through research methods the information about her speech topic and present a well-organized speech on the topic of her choice. Her speech is 5 to 7 minutes. I will complete an evaluation and look forward to getting that following the speeches tonight. Thank you.
Okay, the next evaluator is Ron Slawbaugh. I'm probably butchering the name, I apologize. And he will be evaluating Jackie Graybill's speech. So Ron, if you could tell us about her speech and what you'll be evaluating.
Sure. Thank you, Dean. Jackie's going to deliver a speech on effective body language. The purpose of this project is to deliver a speech with awareness of intentional and unintentional body language, as well as to learn, practice, and refine how she uses nonverbal communication when delivering a speech. And this is a 5 to 7 minute presentation. Back to you, Dean.
Okay, thank you. Next, I want to introduce the timer. And as I caught at the end there, we had a new timer who's Eric, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, you want to tell us about your timer's job?
I will do that. Every meeting we have a timer. And the reason is that we want to be cognizant of our time. You are a popular speaker if you don't go over your time and just talk ad nauseum. If we're part of a program, we usually have a set amount of time to talk within, and we need to practice doing that. We also need to adhere to the times for our Toastmasters meeting because we want to be 1 hour sharp. Tonight, Joyce, is your speech 5 to 7 also? Yeah. Okay. Both speeches are 5 to 7. So when we get to 5 minutes, I will raise up the green card. When we get to 6 minutes, I will raise up the yellow. And when we get to 7, I'll raise up the red. Now, table topics is 1 to 2 minutes and the same kind of situation. When it's 1 minute, it'll be green. When it's 1.5 minutes, it'll be yellow. And when it's 2 minutes, it will be red. Our evaluations are also timed. They are 2 to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, I will give green. At 2.5, I will give yellow. And at 3 minutes, I will give red. And when called upon, I will give my timing of the whole evening.
And how about the evaluations, or did you cover that?
Yep, 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay, 2 to 3. All right. Well, thank you, Eric. And next, I'd like to introduce the grammarian to talk about the word of the day and her role. Please welcome Pat Whitfield.
My role will be to be sure you are all elegant speakers and not assassins by murdering the English language. And I know you all will be just perfect. As for the word of the day, I tied it to the theme. Since the theme is imagining the post-COVID future, the word that I chose is recidivism. Here it is, recidivism. And what recidivism is falling back into bad habits, which I'm sure none of us want to do. So hopefully there will be no recidivism among our group tonight.
Okay, thank you, Pat. And finally, I'd like to introduce the counter, Rob Tidd.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. In the words of a famous Toastmaster, when delivering a speech, it is better to pause in silence than to punctuate the silence with superfluous filler words and grunting noises. Tonight, I will be counting those filler words and other odd noises in hopes that you will avoid using those in future speeches. Such examples are using the word so, but, and the omnipresent word and at the beginning of sentences. And I will report back at the end of the meeting, hopefully with very few comments. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you. At this point, I'll return the meeting back to Mary Syrie.
Thank you, Dean. Good job. We do have 2 speakers tonight, and our first speaker is Joyce Matheson. In this day and age, we need everything that we can get to combat everyday stress that comes with living in a pandemic. Joyce is going to talk about a few of the many mental health benefits of crocheting, how it has helped people in the past, and how it can help us in the present. Please welcome Joyce Matheson as she presents her speech, "A Little Yarn Goes a Long Way to Your Mental Health." Joyce.
Thank you very much, Mary. What if I told you that a crochet hook, such as this one, and a little bit of yarn could be good for you? For centuries, people have found the art of crafting to be very therapeutic. My favorite craft, as you now know, is crocheting. I've spent hours on a project that involves little granny squares. And every time I finish a square, I feel so much better than, say, having spent that time watching the news. It's awful, really. There are 3 benefits of crocheting: stress relief, a sense of purpose, and raising self-esteem. There are a lot more, but we do not have the time. Stress relief. Have you found yourself doom scrolling lately? What is doom scrolling? This is where you take your phone and go into Twitter or Facebook and go and read all of the terrible things of the world. You don't need this in your life. Don't worry, it's protected. What you need is something to keep your hands busy. It's something that you can control. You can't control the president, but you can control your hands. Crocheting and other yarn crafts get your mind off of those terrible things and get you to where you need to be in the here and now, in the present. For instance, during World War I, if I could get my mouth to work, this is what happens. There were campaigns, not just in England, but in America, for people to pick up their needles, pick up their hooks, and make socks for our troops, because that was one of the things that they were low on, were socks and scarves and something to keep them warm. And they had to be in regulation colors, but just the same. There are pictures of people in the underground tubes knitting socks for not only their families, but for the troops, as their city was in danger of being blown up in the great blitzes and the night raids. A sense of purpose. We humans are not just social creatures. We crave a sense of purpose in our lives. One of the many things that will kill a retiree is boredom. I have seen where someone gets their final paycheck and a month later just gives up, dies. That's not fun. I don't want you guys doing that. So you need something to do with your time. My father thinks crocheting is passive, but he doesn't sit on his assets either. He uses it as a full-time job. I, on the other hand, when I do retire someday, will most likely go into learning crafts so I can teach other people. That is my sense of purpose, to teach people how to crochet. Self-esteem. When you find a pattern of something, such as a sweater, and you get the materials that you need in order to get ready, you get this excitement, but you also get this sense of dread. What if I do it wrong? That's when you sit down, read the pattern, and the next thing you know, it is going by so well that you get this extreme wave of accomplishment. And it just makes you so happy, but that isn't the best part of it all. When you are finished, and there are two possibilities. One, you give this sweater to a friend or a family member and say, here, I made this for you. This makes that person feel so good. This person will look at you and say, you made this for me. And every time that they wear it, they will think of you. But if you keep it, and it's been known to happen, you can keep your stuff. There's no rule against it. You can go down the street wearing your fantastic, let's say, cardigan, and you will run across someone's, oh my goodness, where did you buy that? I bet that was expensive. No, it wasn't. I made this. It took me 3 months of off and on, a nervous breakdown, and a few phone calls to some crafty friends who talked me down off the ledge, but I made it. And you should feel proud. When you hear the following, oh, you made that? Could you teach me? This feeling of pride will come out, and you will either say yes, or I'll try, or my favorite, what's in it for me? Keeping stress down, giving a sense of purpose, and raising self-esteem are the three major characteristics of crafting and crocheting. I hope that you find your craft. As for me, I will be crocheting. Happy hooking.
Thank you, Joyce. Enjoyed that very much. We are birds of a feather, you know. Okay, timer, could we have 1 minute, please, while we all give our comments, written comments to Joyce.
Starting now.
I think the standing up really worked.
That is 1 minute, Madam Toastmaster.
Okay, people, wrap it up. Send them off to Joyce Matheson. Our second speaker tonight is Jackie Graybill. Jackie was homeschooled and never studied a foreign language when she was in high school. Music uses Italian words and phrasings, and since Jackie's a piano teacher, she decided to study Italian when she went to college. But Pacific Lutheran University, her alma mater, didn't offer Italian. So she thought, well, why not travel to Italy and study the language there? Little did she know what Italy would have in store for her. It was the best of times. It was a life-changing time. Jackie Graybill with Firenze.
Mio studio in Italia a Firenze per 4 mesi. Mi parli italiano? Un po'. What I just said in Italian, using my Italian hands, I'm not really Italian, but when you speak Italian, you have to use your hands, was I studied in Italy, in Florence, for 4 months. And I speak Italian a little. I walked outside after another grueling lesson of Italian, in Italian. And I thought to myself, how could it be this difficult to learn Italian? Granted, I was 24. I'd been a piano teacher starting when I was 16, so I didn't start college until I was 22. I wandered down to the main piazza in the beautiful town of Siena, Italy. The main piazza where they had the Palio each year, which was a horse race. I didn't get to see it because I wasn't there during that time of year, but I'm told it's an extremely fun event. I was in Siena studying for 3 weeks because it was a language intensive. Apparently in Siena, the language of Italian is spoken the most purely. Once I had that under my belt, we all trucked over to Florence, or Firenze, as Mary so beautifully said. Firenze is a little like an ice princess, I discovered. I was surprised because all of the images I had in my head of Italians were warm and friendly and welcoming. But I discovered that was mostly Southern Italians, and I was in Northern Italy. There, the men were a little too friendly, if you know what I mean, and the women were a little bit cold. I think it might have had something to do with the fact that they wore their haute couture outfits that they spent almost 50% of their paychecks on, and I very clearly looked like an American tourist. I would walk down the street every day to where I was studying, and I would see Versace, Armani, Gucci in the windows, and I would just wonder at how beautiful they are. I did discover, though, that once you get to know them, even Northern Italians are very friendly. And as I've said before, they usually talk with their hands. I woke up one day, I was staying with an Italian family, and I was a little concerned because it sounded like a really big fight was happening. And I gingerly walked into the kitchen to get my food for the day and was surprised to discover that they were not having a fight at all. They were merely talking to each other using their hands. Firenze is a beautiful city to learn Italian in. I learned Italian, I studied Italian opera. I really enjoyed studying Italian film. In fact, I enjoyed it so much that I wrote my senior thesis in undergrad on Italian neorealist film. Has anybody ever heard of Italian neorealist film? It's a short period of time post-World War II. It's about 8 years long. And since the Germans had blown up all the production houses, what Italians did was they took video cameras out and they filmed outside. And the films during that period have a very documentary-esque feel to them. And they're oftentimes about resistance fighters, Italian resistance fighters that were allies in World War II. The last thing that I studied and the thing that I loved the most was photography for media. My professor was adamant that we not do digital. So we each brought our manual cameras and we were using color slide film, not even negatives, color slide film. And he taught us a phrase, posso fare un foto, which means, can I make a photo? Now, I didn't have the outlet of music while I was there. So when I was feeling lonely or stressed, what I would do is I would take to the streets with my camera. I would turn down a corner and I would click on some gorgeous, gorgeous statues, beautiful architecture. And then I remembered one day I was walking down a street and I looked over to see a young man in a window talking to his mother who was outside. I thought that makes a beautiful photo. Let's see if they'll let me take a photo of them. So I walked over and I said, "Posso fare un foto?" And to my surprise, the young man grabbed his mother's hand, they clasped hands, and they let me take a photo of them. It was such a poignant description, a visual description of the relationships that generations have with each other in Italy. I got to travel so many places. Here's some of the favorites of mine. I went to Germany on one of my breaks, and I got to go to Bonn, Germany, where Beethoven was born. Took photos there. I got to go to Norway, and I walked the streets that my great-grandfather walked. He's a full-blooded Norwegian. And, incidentally, he was also in his 80s when he joined Toastmasters. I got to see so many beautiful sights that I can see in my head today. Even though this was 14 years ago, it feels like it was yesterday because I captured those images through the lens of my film. And through this experience, I realized, as J.R.R. Tolkien said, not all who wander are lost. You can discover so much about a culture, architecture, and the beauty through capturing a photo. Next time you go to a different country, take out your phone and see what you can capture. Maybe you'll have some memories that will last 14 years or longer as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Brava, brava. I think that's Italian.
Yes, brava.
Timer, could we have 1 minute while everyone writes their comments for Jackie on evaluation?
It is 1 minute, Madam Toastmaster.
Very good. Wrap it up, finish that sentence, put a period at the end, and send it off to Jackie. We're up against table topics next. And I've been thinking about this word of the day, and I hope we can have some creative ways of using it. I'm thinking I would like to fall back into a good habit of traveling, and Jackie has made me hungry for that form of recidivism. Tina, please introduce us to table topics, and what are we going to talk about today?
Thank you, thank you. The theme for the day is imagining the post-COVID future. But I took a little spin on that, as usual. And we are going to come at it from the perspective of creating the post-COVID future. Just imagine you are in a position of authority. I will describe the position and your challenge. Then you tell us how you will use your position to create the future. Here we go. You are the mayor of any town. How will you assure residents that it's safe to shop, dine out, take their kids to parks, basically resume their pre-COVID activities? Vicki.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. As mayor of the town, I would have implemented certain precautions during the pandemic to make it where it was a shorter amount of time, because we nipped it in the bud. And we had a month where we really hunkered down. Those that were essential workers were ones that were either in the medical field, taking care of people. We would make sure that everybody that needed certain foods or medications received them, but those that did not need to go out did not have to go out. Things were brought to them. Therefore, in this post-pandemic part, there's really not the sense that it's going to come back, because we have implemented precautions prior to us going back into normal life. And we have eradicated this pandemic to where there is no longer the surge going to be coming back, because we nipped it in the bud. This is Table Topics Master.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor of any town, anywhere. Well done. As the U.S. Secretary of Education, will you encourage the continuation of online learning for K-12 students? Lloyd.
You're on mute.
You're muted.
I knew that. I just wanted to see if you guys were alert. But anyway, it's an interesting thing to think about, because the schools are in a terrible dilemma right now. It's definitely not safe to gather large groups of kids together, no matter what anybody says. Anybody who's ever taught school can tell you exactly what's going to happen about a week or two after the first kid starts sniffling or coughing. Hundreds will be sick. You may have heard about that high school in Georgia where a girl posted a picture of the crowds in the hallways, so they suspended her because she made the school look bad. Well, today they said 9 kids in that school have COVID, and they've had to close the place down because they were all crammed together. Surprise, surprise. On the other hand, the online learning last spring here in Washington State was a spectacular failure. And it's a failure in the sense that a large fraction of the kids never engaged with the program. They did not log in, they didn't do any assignments or anything. Now that was true primarily at the secondary level. The elementary level had pretty good engagement, and that's probably because a lot of the elementary kids' parents, made sure they did it, whereas the secondary kids' parents did not. This may shock you, but teenagers, if they're given the opportunity, will screw off as opposed to working. So I have no idea what ought to be done. Both of the possibilities, the online and the in-person, have extremely serious disadvantages. What people seem to be experimenting with right now is the notion of some sort of transitional thing. Start with online, move to some sort of hybrid, go to totally in-person. But who knows when it'll be possible to do that. So the answer to the question is, beats me, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you for your honesty there, Mr. U.S. Secretary of Education. Oh, what's next here? There was a giant filler. Anybody get that down? Come on. You are the owner of Norwegian Cruise Lines. How will you assure the public that it's safe to take a cruise? Mr. All-Counter Person.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. It's interesting that you asked me that question because, like Jackie, I'm also part Norwegian. Interestingly enough, Norway and Sweden didn't always get along. Yet my great-grandparents, my great-grandfather was Swedish and my great-grandmother was Norwegian. And they had like 12 kids. It was incredible. I don't know how that happened. I don't know much about the Norwegian part of the family. We have gone to Sweden and we've met some of our relatives there. And it was so much fun. We went to a couple of the churches where our relatives were buried. I found out more about my family than I ever knew before I had gone to Sweden. And we had a terrific time there. I actually look forward to going back to Sweden, even though there is a part of me that would like to go to Norway too, because my great-grandmother was from a little town called Alta. And Jackie, I don't know if you know where that is. The interesting thing about it is during World War II, the Germans destroyed all the records. So there isn't any family history that we can refer back to. But hopefully, we'll be able to learn a little bit more about my family ancestry on the Norwegian side, just as we've discovered more about our Swedish heritage. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
You are welcome. We will not be sailing on Norwegian cruise lines. Apparently. Your dream vacation was canceled when COVID hit. Where will you go when the pandemic has passed? Pat.
I think you all know I had planned to go to Machu Picchu to celebrate my 80th birthday. It was on my bucket list and it was my dream, but I had to cancel it. I still think I would like to go to Machu Picchu. So when everything settles down, it's there and I'm thinking seriously about it. However, Peru is a third world country that's having a lot of trouble with the pandemic. So I might take a second choice and go back to my very favorite city in Europe, which is Venice. I love Venice. And I've had such lovely experiences there. That would be my second choice. And probably I'd go there first and push Machu Picchu a little bit further down the calendar. That's it.
Thank you, Pat. You are the king of practically everything. Who will you enlist to help assure that another worldwide pandemic does not happen? Ian.
I knew you were going to call me on that one. I was scrambling trying to think of people that I would enlist. I have no idea. Probably my dad. He seems to know it all. Certainly I would have to enlist some people that have been through a thing or two like this in the past. People with experience dealing with diseases, people that have worked in third world nations, Africa, India, where pandemics have happened, people that are well versed in history. For instance, I was reading something yesterday about how we've been able to, well, let me take a step back there. Mary said something at the beginning of the meeting tonight about how COVID is just not going to go away. And I read something similar about that. I was a victim of clickbait yesterday and read that the only pandemic that we've really been able to control in recent years, within the last many decades, was smallpox. I would hope that I could find some people that were well educated in the historical means and methods for controlling things like smallpox. And definitely some good speakers, people that are capable of being bipartisan and people that are open-minded to new ways of thinking. Tough question. I wish I could have spun that one off to some other place, perhaps Norwegian sailing, something like that. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Good answer, Ian. Put some thought into that. Very good. We, I believe, have time for one more. What is it, 6:11? Yes?
Yep.
You are the CEO of a major company. Will you allow employees continue working remotely? Eric.
Thank you, Table Topics Master. This has been a very interesting time at our company. We have a large IT department, and they've done a very good job of helping us get remote. We are an essential business. We are fruit and vegetable brokers. So we could stay open. But early on, probably about 40% of the people decided to go home, stay home, and get hooked up with electronics. And surprisingly, it went very well. A lot of them like to have two screens, but we put up two screens and we had a computer there that replicated the workplace, and they didn't really miss a beat. We've got one lady that comes in early from 5 to 7 when nobody's there, and then she works remote at home, and she hasn't missed a beat either. One of the surprising things is that there's a lot less workplace talking. People don't understand when they look at social media and then they talk about that and they think they're talking for 5 minutes. Well, it's 5 minutes 7 times a day and a continuing conversation. And it's been a lot more efficient that way. I would very much embrace letting people work remotely if they wanted to. And we are right now ramping up methods to measure their effectiveness. And I think that's probably one of the leading edges of this field, is to be able to measure effectiveness and to let those people that don't miss a beat to keep going. I'm all for it. I think it's a wonderful side benefit of COVID. Thank you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Eric. That concludes our time with Table Topics. Thank you, everyone, for putting great thought into it. I think everyone who did not have a major speaking role tonight had an opportunity to participate. I will now turn it back to our Toastmaster for the conclusion of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. That's very interesting. Good, thoughtful answers. I commend everyone. So let's get into evaluations, and I'm going to turn it back over to Dean, our general evaluator.
Thank you, Mary. The first part of the evaluation phase of the meeting is to evaluate the speakers. To do that, I'd like to get started with having Steve Schwind evaluate
Joyce.
Joyce, yeah. I'm trying to mess with my single computer screen. Evaluate Joyce Matheson's speech. Steve, please.
Thank you, Dean. Joyce, as always, your speeches are fun. You have energy and make them lively. Your speech tonight was clear as to your topic. You showed us the crochet hook, you showed us the yarn, and pursued the content of your speech. You gave us the 3 big points that you would speak about: stress relief, sense of purpose, self-esteem, and then you went into each of those to explain them, giving us the title to each of them first and then filling in a little. Was nicely done, giving us the picture of World War II supporters, finding an activity that would help them provide and give them the stress relief. Doing an activity that didn't involve the little screen. Of course, in World War I, they didn't have the little screen, but today we do, and a lot of people do get buried into that activity. It's mindless and it wastes away their day, where something like crocheting or knitting is certainly far more purposeful. I could very much identify with your speech personally on the topic of crafts because of my pursuit of art. It resonated well. People crave activities. You gave us a little picture of what happens when people don't have a pursuit in life. They lose their flame and leave us. Having that sense of purpose does keep people going, and it was great how you instilled into your speech the little tidbit about how you will have a purpose post-employment days. You'll learn a craft and you will do it with the intentions of sharing it. Altruistic and a wonderfully positive perspective in your speech. Your final topic was self-esteem, and I think that's an important one for you. And you talked about the ability to create that nice little crocheted square that would build together and ultimately create a finished product, that you would have a finished product that people would compliment you about, that they may receive as a gift and appreciate forever, and that they may see you wearing it and really admire it and admire your ability to do that craft and ask you to help teach them. The thing that I enjoyed about your speech is the humor, of course, which you always do well, referring to sitting on your assets and throwing your cell phone over your shoulder. That was great. I would have told you to probably not make us all feel good because it has a protector on it. It's a good thing to do with those thrown right over your shoulder. And finally, your last little bit of humor, I can't find it in my notes, was great. You did a good job with humor. You did give us an idea of what we can look forward to doing. I felt like the one spot where you lost a little bit of energy was really giving us a good idea of the research that you did. You didn't make references to that. And I saw a couple of instances where I thought it was something that you looked into. You lost a little bit of your comfort level because you were thinking about that or looking to bring something back in your mind. Your granular organic speeches are always your smoothest, but you did a nice job. Well done.
Thank you.
Mr. Valdrader.
Thank you, Steve. Next, I'd like to call on Ron to evaluate Jackie's speech. Ron, please provide your evaluation.
Thank you, Dean. I think this is the probably third speech in a row that Jackie has presented to all of us. I remember thinking when, I believe last week, the week before, Pat was the evaluator, and Jackie was done with her speech. I was somewhat envious. I thought, man, I wish I could evaluate that speech. That was a really good speech. And now I get to evaluate one of Jackie's speeches. And I'll admit, normally, because I've done a lot of these things, it's not that big of a deal, but this, Jackie, was a really good speech. And I find myself with just a touch of anxiety because I want to deliver as great of an evaluation for this audience as you did with your speech. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. It shows your topic basically of Italy, and knowing that, of course, this is the objective of this speech is utilization of effective body language. Thought, oh, come on, you can challenge yourself a little bit more. The Italian people are all about body language and speech enunciation. This should be a walk in the park. But I liked how you actually started with speaking some Italian. And it wasn't just one word or a short phrase. There was probably 3 sentences in there. And I thought that was great, and you did a great job with it. It was enough to really build some credibility that you certainly know what you're talking about, that you are an authority with this particular topic. Good job with that. Body language, sure, we think about folks using hands, but there's an awful lot more to body language, and I think you demonstrated that to the group quite nicely. You know, the use of your hands was absolutely great. You used as much of the available area as you could. Didn't have to move side to side, and I don't think that you needed to, but you did lean into the camera and lean back out very appropriately, and made me chuckle a couple of times because you mixed in with that appropriate, say, the head tilt or wandering your eyes or just facial expressions. The whole package with the body language was there, and none of it was random to me. That's a criticism I've had of other folks and that they've had of me before, is perhaps some of the movements being too random, and yours certainly were not. Your movements were great. The one thing that I like too, when you look to the side and you're talking about using the camera and framing, you look to the side, not straight on it. I thought that was really good. Again, use of the hands with that body language. A few other items that you threw in just to make this a really effective speech. You had that J.R. Tolkien quote. He also gave us just a slight, probably only 20 or 30 seconds, an Italian history lesson. Sorry, I don't remember what the topic was, but you did. You gave us a history lesson. And all this was leading up to the conclusion where I thought, okay, Jackie's probably going to end like she started with a little bit of Italian, but you didn't. You surprised me. Instead, you gave us a piece of very genuine advice, which is, of course, bring the camera and take a picture. The only criticism that I would have, and really this is only because I lost a speech evaluation contest in Yakima for not criticizing, is pauses. You did have some pauses in there. I think they could have been a little bit longer with some of them. But other than that, man, this was a great speech. I'd say one of your best yet. And I really look forward to the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron. Next, it's time for the timers report. And that was Eric?
Yes.
Yes.
Speeches, Joyce, 627, Jackie, 721, right within parameters. Table topics, Vicky, 121, Lloyd, 154, Rob, 151, Pat, 102, Ian, 2 minutes flat, Eric, 203. Our 2 evaluators had a little recidivism and a little loquaciousness. Steve was 412, Ron was 348, but all in all, great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Next, I'd like to call upon Pat for the grammarian report and use of the word of the day, which, given my usual recidivism, I've forgotten to use until just now.
I'm having a little bit of a struggle. My dog is sitting next to me and she's trying to burrow under the cushion I keep my laptop on. So if you see things bouncing, it's because Chloe is being sort of halfway naughty. In general, at first I was ready to throw up my hands and give up the ghost because the only person who had used recidivism was Mary. And she struggled a little bit because that V and the D in the middle of the word is a tongue twister, actually. But then Dean saved the day, and so did Eric. So the word was used at least 3 times. If I come back to the use of the language, Rob, the word is superfluous, not superfluous. Okay, so that needed a little tidying up. Ron, are you aware that you drop your ing endings? You said talking, using, instead of talking and using consistently throughout your evaluation. So you might want to think about that and polish that up a little bit. And the language is Italian, not Italian. It's Italian. Okay. Eric, I loved your use of the word loquaciousness. That was so cool. I was happy to hear that word. Joyce, just 2 little items of grammatical things. The word is pictures, not pictures, and get, not get.
I'll work on that.
However, and somebody's already called attention to this, some of the language that you used, sit on his assets. I mean, who could fail to laugh at that? Such a great play on words, done very well. And then ending it with happy hooking. Talk about a possible double entendre. Just cool as can be. Vicki, when you were doing your speech, you talked about something about to us giving back, but actually you have to use the possessive to our giving back rather than the pronoun us. And Jackie, some of the language that you used, aside from the Italian, you used haute couture. How lovely to talk about fashion and identify it as haute couture. And talking about gingerly walking into the kitchen. You know, I could kind of picture what that was. And another thing that you did in a play on words was you called it was documentary-esque. Bravo. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Pat. Last part of the evaluation portion is the counter report. Rob, please let us know how good or bad we've been.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Tonight, we avoided much of the recidivism that we have seen in the past with the repeat and use of filler words. Most everyone tonight had a clean speech or evaluation. However, there were just a couple, and I will point those out. Joyce, the omnipresent use of the word and at the beginning of the sentence, you had 1. Jackie, you had 1. Lloyd, the word came up 3 times in your speech. And everyone else was perfect. So congratulations, everyone did wonderfully tonight. Thank you, and that's my report.
Thank you, Rob. Since we're short on time, I'll just make a few short comments about the meeting, which as usual was very well run. I thought we had a good relevant meeting theme tonight. The speeches were very relevant to that theme. Mary, I thought as Toastmaster, you had great introductions and commentary between the meeting segments. You looked very polished running the meeting. Christina, I appreciated the creative approach to table topics that was relevant to the theme and our great issue of the day. Steve, you gave a great evaluation. You highlighted some strong points, some organization and content, and you mentioned the humor, which I also appreciated. The one thing I would offer to you and the other evaluator is to try and sandwich any improvements into it. Otherwise, you end the evaluation on, wow, it was great, but. And personally, I like it to have that sandwiched in so you can finish on a high note. Maybe it's just a summary of the very best points of the speech to move the speaker off onto their next speech for next time. And Ron, try to get right to your evaluation. You spent about 30 seconds talking about other things, but you really hit one of my favorite parts of the speech, which was the body language and gestures. That was really an outstanding part of a very good speech. You could have hit on some other parts that were also good, perhaps organization. But basically, those were good evaluations. I appreciated both of them. And finally, Pat, I really appreciated your grammarian's report. That was one of the best and most thorough I've ever heard. Again, great meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Everyone else? At this point, we are out of time for the meeting, so I'll make a quick transition over to Lloyd. Lloyd, is there anything you'd like to discuss real quick tonight?
Nope.
Okay.
Or more or less.
Also need to vote for Speaker of the Night.
Oh.
Send it to Rob. He's our Sergeant at Arms, so he'll collect those.
Mm-hmm. And if anyone wants to attend the thing on Saturday, do we want to mention that really quick?
Yeah, I'll send the link for that and everything in my email tomorrow.
Great, great. I'm moderating a caucus that Vicki, Deborah, and Karen are going to be talking about the people who are up for election on the international level. That'll be Saturday, 3:30 to 5. If anyone wants to attend.
That should be pretty fun for you. Is there anybody else that has any comments? I'm scrolling through. Doesn't look like it.
Oh, we want to welcome Zedelia or Delia.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Rob, do we have a winner tonight?
We do, Mr. President. It was close. But the winner this evening is Jackie Graybill. Congratulations, Jackie.
Congratulations, Jackie. Congratulations, everybody else, on the bang-up job tonight. I'd like to echo what Dean said on Pat's grammarian review. Spot on. I really enjoyed that. He brought up some itty-bitty points that I hadn't ever thought about when I'd done grammarian reports before. So it's given me an opportunity to think of ways to improve my grammarian report in future roles. At this point, I would like to call the meeting closed. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Everybody, or on Saturday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.